Welcome
Some
to
moments
LVT
don't need a
SHOWBIZ, the
confession.
place to get the fastest,
They don't
highest
need a
quality,
headline.
most interesting
They
updates
only
and
need
new
one
perspectives
instinctive
on
move,
Chinese
and the
entertainment.
entire room changes. Because what happened between Chen Zheyuan and Li Qin wasn't loud. It wasn't staged. It wasn't for the cameras. Yet in just a few seconds, the internet reacted like it had witnessed the beginning of a love story. So the real question is this. Was that touch, and that brief hug, simply good manners in a crowded venue? Or was it a kind of closeness you cannot fake, especially when you don't realize everyone is watching? Stay with me, because the details people are missing are exactly what make this moment feel so powerful. In celebrity culture, the public is used to polish. We expect distance, careful angles, and a kind of social choreography that keeps everything neat and uncontroversial. That is precisely why this moment landed so strongly. It did not feel choreographed. It felt like two people briefly forgetting the performance, not because they intended to prove anything, but because they were simply present with one another. What viewers responded to first was the atmosphere. Their body language carried a quiet ease, walking at the same pace, pausing naturally, exchanging looks that did not seem designed for a camera. There was no grand gesture, no obvious attempt to sell closeness. Yet the lack of effort became the very thing that felt convincing. People are highly sensitive to authenticity, especially in spaces where authenticity is rare. The moment also struck a deeper nerve. It offered a small, gentle relief from noise. In a world where fame often amplifies tension, this was a pocket of calm. It made audiences feel that something human was happening under the bright lights, something that did not require a caption or a statement. That emotional contrast, glamour outside, quiet warmth inside, creates a powerful psychological hook. Viewers lean in because they sense a truth that is not being announced, only revealed. And once the audience believes a moment is real, they do not just watch it, they protect it, share it, and replay it until it becomes a story. The most talked about detail was not dramatic at all. It was a small touch on the arm, brief, gentle, and seemingly unconscious. That is exactly why it mattered. A deliberate gesture can be dismissed as etiquette. An unplanned reflex, however, is harder to explain away, because it hints at comfort that already exists. What makes touch emotionally potent is context. In a crowded public setting, most people become more guarded, not less. Celebrities, especially, are trained to keep physical boundaries clear. So when a touch appears natural rather than calculated, the audience reads it as a sign of familiarity. It suggests a private habit surfacing in a public space. Equally important is what came after, her response. She did not step away or stiffen. She offered a soft smile that looked more like reassurance than performance. In storytelling terms, this is what turns a single action into a two-way exchange. It becomes less about what he did and more about how they moved together. That mutual rhythm creates emotional meaning, because it frames the moment as shared rather than one-sided. For viewers, this touch became a starting point, not a conclusion. It did not prove anything, but it invited interpretation. It gave audiences a tiny, undeniable detail they could hold on to, something small enough to feel safe, yet vivid enough to feel intimate. And when people feel they have witnessed intimacy, even in miniature, they become invested. They start searching for patterns, replaying frames, and filling the silence with their own hopes and narratives. The emotional peak arrived in a fraction of a second. Li Qin laughed, shifted slightly, and looked as if she might lose her balance. What followed was not theatrical romance. It was instinct, a quick stabilizing movement that became, for a moment, a protective hug. The audience reacted so strongly because instincts tend to reveal priorities. They happen before we have time to manage appearances. In public life, especially in entertainment, spontaneity is rare. Most reactions are filtered through awareness of cameras, headlines, and interpretation. That is why this hug felt unusually powerful. It did not read as a staged embrace designed to cause a stir. It read as a body responding to another body with care. There is a sincerity in that kind of reaction that words cannot reproduce. The hug was brief, but its meaning was amplified by what it did not contain. There was no exaggerated holding, no lingering pose, no obvious effort to turn it into a moment. And yet, it carried an unmistakable message: I've got you. Audiences crave that message, not just as romance, but as safety. Many people watching are not only projecting love. They are projecting the emotional comfort they wish existed more often in real life. Her response deepened the impact. She did not recoil. She looked surprised for an instant, then relaxed into a softer smile. That non-resistance becomes emotional confirmation of trust. It suggests that the gesture did not violate her boundaries, it matched them. And when a clip communicates trust under pressure, the audience does not simply call it cute. They feel moved, because trust is one of the rarest forms of intimacy on display in public. Crowds change people. In tightly packed spaces, we become more alert, more defensive, and more aware of personal boundaries. A public event adds another layer: lights, cameras, strangers, and constant evaluation. In that context, most individuals, particularly public figures, move carefully, keeping interactions minimal to avoid misinterpretation. This is why the audience response to Chen Zheyuan and Li Qin felt so intense. The clip does not just show a sweet moment, it shows a small pocket of ease inside a high-pressure environment. Psychologically, that reads as closeness. When two people remain calm in a crowded, performative space, viewers interpret it as shared comfort, almost like they have created an invisible shelter around each other. There is also the phenomenon of protective positioning in crowds. People naturally angle their bodies to shield someone they care about from being bumped, blocked, or overwhelmed. The public may not consciously name it, but they recognize it instantly. It is deeply human and universally understood. That is why such gestures travel well across cultures and languages. They do not require translation. Another layer is contrast. The noisier the setting, the more emotionally valuable a quiet moment becomes. The crowd acts like a backdrop that highlights intimacy. A gentle touch in a silent room might look ordinary. The same touch in a chaotic venue becomes meaningful. It feels like a calm signal in a storm. Finally, crowds invite collective storytelling. People watching online become a second crowd, reacting, replaying, and amplifying. The moment becomes ours, not just theirs. This is how a few seconds become a narrative. The setting provides pressure, the action provides relief, and the audience supplies the emotional interpretation that gives it lasting life. In the end, the clip didn't go viral because it was shocking. It went viral because it felt human. It reminded people that closeness doesn't always arrive with big speeches. Sometimes it appears as a reflex, quiet, sincere, and protective, before anyone has time to put on a mask. Whether this was friendship, professional comfort, or something more, one thing is clear. For a few seconds, the world watched two people share a moment that felt real. And that is exactly why millions couldn't look away. If you enjoyed this kind of warm, respectful deep dive into the moments everyone is talking about, please subscribe to LVT Showbiz. It genuinely helps the channel grow and allows us to keep bringing you thoughtful updates without the noise. Thank you for watching, and I appreciate you spending your time with me today. Until the next story, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next video on LVT Showbiz.